Electrics and wiring. Joy. For any cafe racer or scrambler or any kind of motorbike builder, these two words bring a shitter of fear down most people's backs. You get some people that love wiring, they take an absolute joy and pride in it. I myself am not one of those people, but from working with motorbikes over the years, I've come up with a simple way of deciphering these diagrams. Now, trusty Haynes manual. So the first time you open up one of these and you see that, for me, a bit of poo came out. You don't know where to start. But anyway, hopefully this video should explain a little bit. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. The only advice that I can give to you is to split your electrics into two bits. So you've got your lights, dash lights, headlights, indicators, brake lights, all sorts, oil pressure gauge on one side. So then split your functional electrics, so your regulator, your ignition coils, your ignition points onto another side, and that should hopefully make a lot more sense to you than if you can differentiate between the two and then sort one thing out first and then the other thing. So here's my quick guide on how to decipher wiring diagrams. So let's bring up the diagram. First glances, this may scare the living crap out of you if you're not used to things like this, but honestly, like I said, if you split it into two sections, so you have your lights, your horn, all these kind of control elements to your electronics, and split off the more functioning parts of your bike, honestly, it starts to become a lot clearer and it's a lot easier to interpret. I've left a few crude wires in here. Honestly, it's just a rough cut out of getting rid of all the things that we don't really need for this session. One advice I can give to you at this stage is to trace your steps. Use a highlighter pen and trace from one end to another. So very crudely here you can see that the wire from the battery goes straight into the starter relay, and then you can chase your wire from the starter relay and then see where it goes. There's one way you can make your wiring even simpler, and this might be controversial to a few people, but get rid of the starter. I know there's a few people out there who like their starters. For me personally, I never like to use starters on my bike. I like the excitement or frustration sometimes of kicking a bike. But not only that, the whole principle behind cafe races is to reduce your weight. If you get rid of your starter, you're saving a heck of a lot. Then you've got your relay that you save weight on. Every little helps. And it makes wiring so much simpler, as here you can just put a little crossover. So rather than wiring the battery to the relay, you just wire it straight to the fuse box. So for the purpose of this, I'm not going to use a starter. Sorry for those who do. Honestly, it's not that much more difficult to put a starter in. If you can follow this wiring diagram, then you'll be able to then understand how a starter and relay connects into this. So let's start off with the battery. As usual, I'm using my Ballistic Evo 8. Another thing with this battery is that the 8 cell hasn't got enough crank, I suppose you call it, to actually run a starter. You'd probably need the 12 cell for that, and that's a big battery to fit into your seat. So for me, the 8 cell was the option. So first thing, you need to connect the negative to the bike frame. Your entire bike frame is the negative, and so is your engine in that matter. Your positive lead exits the battery and splits into two. First of all, it goes into your fuse box. So you have one main fuse. It then leaves the fuse box and goes into your keys. Obviously, when you turn your key, this then sends that signal back into your fuse box, and then the other fuses are then live. I think it's safe to say in the Suzuki that 3 of the 4 fuses that are remaining on this actually control such things as your lights and stuff. So for this example, I'm only using 2 fuses. So it's the primary fuse and then this secondary fuse. So as I mentioned, the positive that comes out the battery actually splits into 2. So it also splits into your regulator. Your alternator is going to be charging up your battery as you're riding, and what this does is it regulates the charge that goes back into your battery so that you don't overfry your battery or overcharge it and whatnot. So definitely have one of these. So out of this regulator, you'll see that it's then connected to your controls, and then from that into your alternator or your generator, whichever you prefer to call it. This produces that charge that your bike needs. So heavy loads like your lights and your battery charge will be coming from this. So from that alternator, you've then got 3 wires that go back into the regulator. And that's pretty much all you've got for this section here. So if you go back to the fuse box, you've then got that second fuse that we need to go back to. From that fuse, you've got a wire, which makes a bit of a convoluted journey, but in a nutshell, it goes to your ignition coils. Depending on the number of cylinders you have on your bike, my Suzuki being a 4-cylinder has 2 ignition coils. So one coil controls piston number 1 of 3, and coil number 2 controls pistons number 2 and 4. So make sure when you're connecting your spark plugs to your coils that you've got this right. If you wire it wrong, then obviously your spark's not going to happen at top of the sensor, so your bike's not going to run basically. But before we connect that to the spark plugs, we've got the contact points itself. So if you like running your bike the old school way without using modern electronic contact points, then you'll have one of these. You'll have 2 points, one on each side. Again, the left point controls pistons 1 and 3, and the right one controls pistons 2 and 4. When these are open and closed, they'll do so in time when that specific cylinder is at top dead center. So your timing has to be pretty good here. So your ignition points connects to your frame, so that's your negative going from the ignition points. But that should send a pulse to your ignition coils so that they fire when they need to. And obviously from coil 1, we've got spark plug 1 and 3, and from coil 2, we've got spark plug 2 and 4. And that's honestly as simple as it is. Don't let these wiring diagrams get you down. Use a pen, trace your steps, and honestly in no time you'll be understanding what goes where, and you'll be a pro at this. Just don't be scared. You can always trace your wires back, you can pull things apart. So that's it. A pretty short and sweet video as I promised, so hopefully this should alleviate anyone's worries and give you the confidence you need to wire your own bike. Don't forget there'll be another video next week. If you've enjoyed this, then please subscribe and I'll keep you updated.